On a stormy morning in the heart of Brighton Hills, a determined young woman named Tiana Brooks set out on what she knew was the most important day of her life. The sky roared overhead, rain slicing sideways through the air like shards of glass. But Tiana pushed forward, a battered umbrella in one hand and a slim folder clutched tightly in the other. The folder held her Futuria carefully typed resume, references from night shift supervisors, and hand-scribbled notes she'd practiced in the mirror for weeks. Just 3 blocks from the bus stop, her momentum came to a sudden halt. There, on the edge of the curb, crumpled in a heap, lay Mr. Hammond, her elderly neighbor who always shared his morning paper and never failed to greet her with a gentle smile. His cane had slipped, and he now sat helpless as the rain drenched his thin jacket. Without thinking, Tiana dropped her umbrella and rushed to his side. "Mr. Hammond, are you all right?" she called out. He groaned, attempting to wave her off. Slipped again. "These old legs just won't cooperate." "Don't move, I got you," she said, already crouching, rain soaking through her cream blouse and skirt. She gathered his grocery bag, steadied him gently, and walked him arm in arm back to his front steps, offering warmth and protection against the cold. By the time he was safely inside, the bus had come and gone. She stood for a moment on his porch, drenched, covered in street grit and water. Most people would have turned back, but she didn't. She pulled her skirt straight, checked that her folder had survived albeit soggy, and bent and sprinted toward her only shot at the future she dreamed about. Inside Will Lenhart Equity Partners, the lobby gleamed like a palace. Tiana arrived out of breath, water still trailing behind her. Her dark curls clung to her face, her blouse see-through from the rain, her skirt streaked with mud. She looked nothing like the other candidates. All crisp suits, clean lines, confident voices. Whispers followed her as she crossed the marble floor. A receptionist blinked in disbelief, hesitating before confirming her name and interview. "Tiana Brooks. Floor 38, Conference Room A," she said, sliding a badge across the counter. Tiana took it with steady hands and walked to the elevator, each squelch of her shoes echoing louder than the soft jazz humming through the ceiling speakers. But she didn't flinch. She had made it. On the 38th floor, the air was cooler, quieter. The hallway stretched before her, lined with abstract art and closed doors. At the end sat Conference Room A, its frosted glass doors already cracked open. Inside, a dozen candidates sat in a perfect formation around a long mahogany table. The interview panel watched her enter with unreadable expressions. Tiana walked in, chin high. She saw the reactions of few widened eyes, one quiet chuckle and arched brow from the woman in navy. Still, she walked straight to the only remaining seat at the farthest end near the vent. She placed her folder down, hands trembling slightly but firm. When it was her turn, she stood and introduced herself without embellishment. "My name is Tiana Brooks. I know I don't look like everyone else here, but I believe what I walked through to get here matters more than what I look like sitting in this chair." The room quieted. "This morning I helped a man who had fallen. I missed my bus. I slipped. I fell. I got up and kept going. Because I didn't come here to be perfect. I came to prove I belong." A beat passed. Then another. Then something shifted. The man at the center of the panel leaned forward. His name tag read Marshall Duval, CEO. 35 years ago, he said softly, I walked into an interview at Helix Capital with oil stains on my sleeves. I'd worked overnight at a service station because my dad was in the hospital and bills needed paying. No one wanted to talk to me, except one guy. He gave me 10 minutes. It changed everything. Marshall looked around the table. "Polish is impressive, but I'll take resilience any day." Then he looked back at Tiana. "You have it." Weeks later, the marble lobby of Will Lenhart Equity still shined. But something had changed. On the 20th floor, in a bright corner office filled with light and whiteboards scrawled with charts, Tiana stood at the front of the room. Now a junior analyst, her blazer fit perfectly, her curls pinned back, her voice calm and authoritative as she presented strategy to the team. Leaning in from the back, new interns scribbled notes. One of them dropped her coffee, spilling papers and brown liquid across the kitchenette counter. She flushed red, embarrassed. Tiana crossed the room, smiling gently. "It's okay," she said, handing her a napkin. "My first day, I walked in soaked from head to toe. Still got the job." The intern laughed nervously, relief washing over her face. And in that moment, Tiana Brooks wasn't just the girl who got through the door. She was the one holding it open for someone else. Because she didn't come to just work. She came to change what leadership looks like. And she had only just begun. In the months that followed, Tiana's influence grew steadily. She earned praise not only for her meticulous work ethic but for her ability to remain calm under pressure. She found ways to connect deeply with clients, her approach grounded not in salesmanship but sincerity. When senior analysts needed data synthesized under tight deadlines, Tiana delivered without complaint. At company town halls, she asked insightful questions not to impress but to push the team toward better outcomes. She became a trusted name among project leaders, someone whose contributions went beyond spreadsheets. Her peers began seeking her out not just for answers but for guidance. And then came the day Marshall Duvall called her into his office. He sat behind a massive oak desk, sunlight streaming in behind him. "Tiana," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "We're expanding our community engagement initiatives. I want you to lead a mentorship program for local college students." She blinked, stunned. "Me?" "Yes," he said. "Because you remember what it's like to stand outside the door and wonder if you'll ever get in. I want you to be the one holding that door open." And she did. By the year's end, the program launched with over 50 men's, many of whom came from the same neighborhoods Tiana once walked through in borrowed shoes. She visited campuses, led workshops, and even returned to Eastlake Community College to speak to the students who sat in the same chairs she once did. Everywhere she went, she carried not just her story but the stories of others who never had the chance to speak theirs. Because Tiana Brooks didn't just rise. She reached back. And each time she did, someone else began to rise too. Eventually, that same drive and vision led her to propose an entirely new division within Will Lenhart, a social equity impact fund designed to invest in small businesses from underserved communities. With Duvall's support and the board's cautious approval, she took the reins. The work was slow, sometimes grueling, with endless layers of paperwork and bureaucratic resistance. But Tiana was undeterred. She met with entrepreneurs in storefronts barely surviving the economic downturn. She walked through neighborhoods where opportunity had long since dried up and listened. She listened to stories of perseverance, of generations of families pouring everything into corner shops, repair garages, and local cafes. She didn't see charity. She saw potential. Her initiative, named the Roots Fund, launched with modest capital but powerful intention. Within its first year, it helped 8 businesses expand, created over 100 local jobs, and re-established community trust in a company often seen as distant and elite. Tiana stood at the center of it all, not in press releases or photo ops, but in late-night emails, budget revisions, and sidewalk conversations outside bodegas. She still returned to her old neighborhood on weekends, her feet carrying her past the same cracked sidewalks where she once ran in the rain. Children who once only knew her as the girl in the hallway with books too big for her backpack now watched her enter meetings in tailored suits and laptops filled with investor presentations. They didn't just see her. They believed her. And belief, she knew, was where everything began. Years from that stormy morning, people would talk about Tiana Brooks as a leader, as the executive who didn't just work the system but reshaped it. They would tell the story of the muddy skirt, the rain-soaked lobby, and the quiet defiance of a woman who chose to walk through the front door no matter how unwelcoming it seemed. And they would tell it not as legend but as blueprint. Because somewhere, someone else would be standing outside, folder in hand, uncertain but hopeful. And Tiana's story would help them take that first step forward.